In the depths of the Gork's fury, Grim Skull stood before a massive biomechanical construct that pulsed with eldritch energy. The device had been built in secret over the past decade, incorporating stolen human technology with Orc bioengineering. It was his secret weapon, the key to victory. "Is the quantum cracker ready?" he asked a hunched figure working at the device's controls. Mad Doke Grokfang was barely recognizable as an Orc anymore. Centuries of self-experimentation had transformed him into something between flesh and machine, his body a writhing mass of cybernetic implants and biomechanical organs. But his mind was still sharp, perhaps the sharpest in the entire fleet. "Yes, boss," Grokfang hissed, his voice like grinding metal. "The quantum cracker is ready. One shot, and the Humi array will be ours." The quantum cracker was Grokfang's masterpiece, a weapon designed to exploit the fundamental weaknesses in human quantum technology. Instead of destroying the array, it would corrupt the quantum matrices, turning them into a weapon that the Orcs could control. "How long until we're in range?" Grimskull asked. 15 minutes, boss. But the Humies are charging up for another shot. If they fire first. They won't, Grimskull said confidently. They don't have the guts to risk destroying their own prize. But we do. The Orc fleet continued its advance, weathering the fire from the human defenders. Ships died on both sides, but the Orcs pressed on with single-minded determination. They could smell victory, and nothing would stop them now. "Boss!" Scarfang called from the bridge. "The Humi fleet is moving to intercept. They're going to try to stop us before we reach their array." Grimskull laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Let him try. We're so close now, nothing can stop us." But even as he spoke, he could see the human ships forming a defensive line between his fleet and the array. They were outnumbered 10-1, but they were fighting with the desperation of the doomed. "All ships, concentrate fire on the lead Humi ship," he ordered. "We're going to break through their line like it's made of paper." The Gork's fury shuddered as its weapons discharged, sending streams of dark energy toward the human fleet. The other Orc ships followed suit, creating a storm of destruction that lit up the void. The human ships returned fire with everything they had, their particle beams and fusion missiles creating brilliant explosions in the darkness. But there were too many Orc ships, and the human line began to buckle under the pressure. "Direct hit on the Humi flagship," Scarfang reported. "She's taking heavy damage." Grimskull watched as a Prometheus was hammered by Orc fire, its shields failing under the relentless assault. Emergency lights flickered along its hull as damage control teams fought to keep the ship operational. But the humans weren't giving up. Even as their ships died around them, they continued to fight with a courage that Grimskull had to admire. They knew they were facing impossible odds, but they fought anyway. "They got spirit," he admitted to Scarfang. "Too bad it won't save him." The battle raged for precious minutes, ships dying on both sides as the two fleets clashed in the void. But the outcome was never in doubt. The Orcs had overwhelming numbers, and they were willing to sacrifice everything to reach their goal. Finally, the human line broke. The surviving ships scattered, unable to maintain their defensive formation under the relentless Orc assault. The way to the array was clear. All ships, full speed ahead. Grimskull roared. "The prize is within reach." The Orc fleet surged forward, their bio-ships pulsing with battle fury. The solar collectors grew larger in their viewports, their quantum matrices glowing with barely contained energy. "Boss!" Grokfang called from the quantum cracker. "We're in range. Ready to fire on your command." Grimskull grinned, his tusks gleaming in the light of the distant sun. After decades of planning, years of preparation, the moment of triumph was finally at hand. "Fire the quantum cracker," he ordered. "Let's show these Humies what real power looks like." The device discharged with a sound like reality tearing. A wave of quantum distortion rippled out from the Gork's fury, racing toward the Helios array at the speed of light. When it struck the solar collectors, the quantum matrices began to flicker and change, their stable patterns becoming chaotic and unpredictable. "It's working," Grokfang cried. "The Humi array is ours." But Grimskull's triumph was short-lived. As the quantum distortion spread through the array, something unexpected happened. The human quantum matrices didn't just become corrupted. They began to resonate with each other, creating a feedback loop that grew stronger with each passing second. "Boss," Scarfang said, his voice tight with concern. "Something ain't right. The energy readings are off the charts." Grimskull looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn to ice. The array wasn't just being corrupted. It was going critical. The quantum matrices were feeding off each other, building toward a catastrophic release of energy. "Grokfang," he bellowed. "What did you do?" The mad Doke's face had gone pale. I don't understand. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Humi technology is different than we thought. His words were cut off as the array began to glow with an ominous light. The quantum matrices were resonating in perfect harmony, their combined energy output climbing toward unimaginable levels. "All ships retreat." Grimskull ordered. "Get us out of here." But it was too late. The array had reached critical mass, and there was no stopping what was about to happen. Dr. Chin watched in horror as the array's quantum matrices began to cascade. The Orc weapon had done exactly what it feared most. It had destabilized the entire system, causing a chain reaction that was spreading to collectors like wildfire. "Power levels are climbing exponentially," Dr. Kim reported, her voice tight with fear. "The matrices are resonating with each other. It's like they're feeding off the distortion." Chen's hands flew over his control console, trying desperately to initiate the emergency shutdown sequence. But the quantum distortion was interfering with his commands, making it impossible to communicate with the outer stations. "Can we contain it?" he asked. "I don't think so," Kim replied. "The resonance is too strong. It's like trying to stop an avalanche with a whisper." On the bridge of Prometheus, Elena watched the unfolding disaster with growing dread. The array was completely out of control, its quantum matrices glowing with an intensity that was visible even from a distance. "All ships, emergency retreat," she ordered. "Get to minimum safe distance." But even as she spoke, she knew it might not be enough. The energy building in the array was beyond anything in human experience. If it reached critical mass, the explosion would be visible from other star systems. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Torres said, "I'm detecting massive energy spikes throughout the array. Dr. Chin reports that the quantum matrices are approaching critical resonance." Elena felt her heart sink. The array was humanity's greatest achievement, and now it was about to become their greatest disaster. The energy it was building would be enough to sterilize the inner solar system. "Give me Dr. Chun," she ordered. The scientist's face appeared on her display, his expression haggard with exhaustion and fear. "Commander, the situation is critical. The quantum matrices are in full cascade. We have maybe 15 minutes before..." "Before what, Doctor?" "Before the array explodes with the force of a supernova. The blast will destroy everything within a radius of several million kilometers." Elena felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a crushing burden. The Nova Protocol was no longer just an option. It was their only hope of survival. "Doctor, can you trigger a controlled detonation? Channel the explosion toward the Orc fleet?" Chen's face went pale. "Commander, you're talking about using the array as a weapon. The energy release would be..." "I know what it would be," Elena interrupted. "But if we don't do something, the explosion will be random. At least this way, we can take the Orcs with us." Chen nodded reluctantly. "I'll try, but I can't guarantee anything. The quantum matrices are already unstable. Trying to channel the explosion could make things worse." "Do it," Elena ordered. "And Doctor, thank you for everything." The transmission ended, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. In a few minutes, she would have to watch the destruction of humanity's greatest achievement. But perhaps in its death, the array would save the civilization it had been built to serve. "All ships, this is Commander Vasquez." She broadcast on the emergency frequency. "Prepare for immediate evacuation of the inner system. The array is going critical." "Repeat, the array is going critical." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ships throughout the solar system began to move, racing away from the impending explosion. But Elena knew that many of them wouldn't make it in time. "Ma'am," Captain Martinez said quietly, "what about us? Shouldn't we be retreating too?" Elena looked at the tactical display. where the Orc fleet was still advancing toward the array. They had finally realized the danger, but it was too late. They were caught in the gravity well of their own greed. "No," she said firmly. "We stay. Someone has to make sure the array's destruction serves a purpose." Martinez nodded, understanding the implications. The Prometheus and its crew were about to become martyrs, sacrificing themselves to ensure that the array's death would take the Orc fleet with it. "All hands, this is the captain," Elena announced over the ship's intercom. "We have been given the honor of witnessing the array's final moments. We will not retreat, we will not surrender, and we will not be forgotten. Whatever happens, remember that we died defending the future of humanity." The response was immediate and heartening. Despite the impossible odds, despite the certainty of death, the crew of the Prometheus stood ready to face their fate. In the depths of the array's control systems, Dr. Chen fought desperately to channel the building explosion. The quantum matrices were beyond his control, but he could still influence the direction of the blast. If he could focus it toward the Orc fleet, their deaths would have meaning. "Sarah," he said to his assistant, "I need you to evacuate. Take the emergency shuttle and get to minimum safe distance." "I'm not leaving you," Dr. Kim replied firmly. "We started this together. We'll finish it together." Chen nodded, grateful for her loyalty. Together, they worked to redirect the array's dying energies, knowing that they were racing against time itself. The quantum matrices were now glowing with an intensity that was painful to look at. The resonance was building toward a crescendo that would reshape the solar system. In a few minutes, the array would die, and its death would be spectacular. "Power levels at maximum," Kim reported. "The matrices are entering final cascade. Time to detonation, 3 minutes." Chen activated the emergency communication system one last time. "This is Control. The array is entering final cascade. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. We are redirecting the blast toward the Orc fleet. Repeat, we are redirecting the blast toward the Orc fleet." As the communication ended, Chen looked at the tactical display one final time. The Orc fleet was trapped, unable to escape the gravity well of the dying array. In their greed, they had sealed their own fate. 2 minutes to detonation, Kim announced. Chen reached over and took her hand. "It's been an honor working with you, Sarah." "The honor was mine, Marcus." Together, they watched as the array's quantum matrices began their final dance, building toward explosion that would be remembered for millennia. The Helios array, humanity's greatest achievement, was about to become their greatest sacrifice, but in death, it would serve its purpose one last time. The explosion, when it came, was beyond human comprehension. The array's quantum matrices detonated in perfect synchronization, releasing the accumulated energy of decades in a single, devastating burst. The light was so intense that it momentarily outshone the sun itself, visible from the outer planets as a new star being born. Elena felt the Prometheus shudder as the shockwave reached them, the ship's hull groaning under stresses it was never designed to handle. But she had positioned them carefully, just outside the primary blast radius. They would survive long enough to witness the array's final victory. On the tactical display, the Orc fleet was caught in the heart of the explosion. Ships that had survived millennia of warfare were vaporized in seconds, their biohulls no match for the raw power of quantum annihilation. The Gork's fury lasted slightly longer than the others, its massive bulk providing momentary protection, but even it was eventually consumed by the hungry light. "My God," Lieutenant Torres whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of tortured metal. "They're all gone, the entire fleet." Elena nodded, unable to speak. The sight of so much destruction, even of their enemies, was overwhelming. Thousands of ships, millions of lives, all erased in an instant by the dying array. But their sacrifice had not been in vain. The Orc fleet was destroyed, their threat to humanity eliminated. The array had served its purpose one final time, protecting the civilization it had been built to serve. "Ma'am," Captain Martinez reported, "we're receiving emergency signals from throughout the system. The blast wave is dissipating, but the radiation levels are still critical." Elena forced herself to focus on the immediate situation. The array was gone, its quantum matrices scattered across millions of kilometers of space. But the danger wasn't over. The radiation from the explosion would make the inner system uninhabitable for years. "Signal all ships to maintain distance," she ordered. "We need to assess the damage before anyone approaches the blast zone." As the light of the explosion faded, Elena could see the true scope of the devastation. Where the array had once stood, there was now only empty space scattered with debris. The solar collectors that had taken decades to build were gone, leaving behind a void that would take generations to fill. "Commander," came a familiar voice over the communication system. "This is Dr. Chun. Sarah and I are aboard the emergency shuttle. We managed to escape before the final cascade." Elena felt a surge of relief. She had thought the two scientists were lost to the array, but somehow they had survived. "Doctor, what's your status?" "Battered but alive. The shuttle systems are damaged, but we're holding together." "Commander, I need to report something." The explosion was larger than we predicted. The quantum resonance amplified the blast by a factor of 10. Elena felt her blood turn to ice. "What does that mean for the inner system?" "The radiation levels are beyond critical. Mars, Venus, even Earth will be affected. We're looking at years of contamination, maybe decades." The full impact of their victory began to sink in. They had stopped the Orcs, but at a cost that might be too high to bear. The array's destruction had saved humanity from conquest, but it also crippled their ability to maintain their interstellar civilization. "Dr. Chun," Elena said slowly, "how long before the radiation levels drop to safe levels?" "For the inner system? Minimum of 50 years, possibly longer. The outer planet should be safe, but everything inside the asteroid belt will be uninhabitable." Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of what they had done. Billions of people would have to be evacuated, entire worlds abandoned. The human civilization that had spread across the solar system would have to contract back to the outer planets, struggling to survive without the array's power. But they would survive. That was what mattered. "All ships, this is Commander Vasquez." She broadcast on the emergency frequency. "The Orc fleet has been destroyed, but the inner system is contaminated. Begin immediate evacuation procedures. All civilian vessels are to report to the outer system stations for processing." The response was immediate and chaotic. Ships throughout the solar system began to move, racing away from the radiation zone. It would be the largest evacuation in human history. But Elena knew it was necessary. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Torres said quietly, "incoming transmission from Earth. It's Prime Minister Jackson." Elena straightened her uniform and accepted the call. Jackson's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mixture of grief and gratitude. "Commander, I've been monitoring the situation. The entire council sends their thanks. You and your crew have saved humanity." "At a cost, sir," Elena replied. "The array is gone, and the inner system is contaminated. We're looking at a complete evacuation." Jackson nodded solemnly. "I understand. But Elena, you need to know something. The array was more than just a power source. It was a symbol of human achievement, proof that we could overcome any obstacle. Today, you've proven that we still can." Elena felt tears welling in her eyes. "Sir, I'm not sure the price was worth it." "It was," Jackson said firmly. "The Orcs would have enslaved or destroyed us. Instead, we're free. Wounded, but free. And we'll rebuild. Elena, we'll find a way to reclaim the inner system, to build a new array, to reach even greater heights. Because that's what humans do. We endure." The transmission ended, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. The battle was over. The war was won. But the true test was just beginning. Humanity would have to prove that they could survive without the array, that they could rebuild their civilization from the ashes of the old. As she watched the evacuation ship streaming away from the contaminated inner system, Elena allowed herself a moment of hope. The array was gone, but the human spirit that had built it remained. And as long as that spirit endured, humanity would find a way to survive. The stars were still there, waiting to be explored. The future was still possible, waiting to be claimed. And somewhere in the outer system, the first plans for a new array were probably already being drawn. The Orcs had been defeated, but humanity's greatest victory lay ahead. 50 years later, Captain Sarah Martinez stood on the observation deck of the U.S. New Prometheus, watching the construction of Helios Array 2. The new solar collectors were smaller than their predecessors, but they were also more efficient, incorporating lessons learned from the disaster of 3254. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Admiral Elena Vasquez, now in her 80s but still sharp as a razor. She had lived to see the completion of the new array, a testament to human resilience and determination. "It is," Sarah agreed. She was the daughter of Dr. Sarah Kim and Captain Martinez, born in the dark years after the array's destruction. Her entire life had been shaped by the struggle to rebuild human civilization. The new array was built with safeguards that would prevent another cascade failure. The quantum matrices were isolated from each other, and multiple redundant systems ensured that no single weapon could compromise the entire network. "The Orcs haven't been seen in over 30 years, Sarah said. "Do you think they'll try again?" Elena shrugged. "Maybe, but if they do, we'll be ready. The array is stronger now, and so are we." The evacuation of the inner system had been a tragedy, but it had also been a catalyst. Forced to live in the outer system, humanity had developed new technologies, new ways of thinking. The colonies on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn had become thriving civilizations in their own right. "Ma'am," came a voice from behind them. Lieutenant Torres, now a captain herself, approached with a data tablet. "The final collector is online. The array is at full power." Elena smiled. "Then let's see what we can do with it." As the new array came online, its energy began to flow through the solar system. The dead worlds of the inner system began to receive power once again, their terraforming systems slowly coming back to life. It would take decades to make them habitable again, but the process had begun. "The Orcs thought they could destroy us," Elena said quietly. "They thought that by taking our greatest achievement, they could break our spirit. They were wrong." Sarah nodded, understanding the deeper truth. The array wasn't just a source of power. It was a symbol of human determination. No matter how many times they were knocked down, humans would always find a way to get back up. "What's next?" Sarah asked. Elena's eyes gleamed with the same fire that had driven her to command the defense of the original array. "Next, we reach for the stars. The array, too, is just the beginning. We're going to build a network of solar collectors around every star in the galaxy. And if anyone tries to stop us..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. The Orcs had learned the hard way that humanity was not easily defeated. Any future enemies would learn the same lesson. As the two women watched the new array spread its light across the solar system, they knew that they were witnessing the dawn of a new age. The dark years were ending, and humanity was ready to reclaim its destiny among the stars. The Helios array was reborn, and with it, the future of human civilization was secure. In the depths of space, far beyond the reach of human sensors, something stirred. The Orc Empire had not been destroyed with a fleeted soul. It had merely been wounded. And wounds, given time, could heal. But that was a story for another day. For now, humanity basked in the light of their new sun, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stars were calling, and humanity was ready to answer